Welcome to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram's Immigration News Show. Today we ask, can immigrants keep powering U.S. innovation amid policy storms?
It's a huge question right now.
It really is. And first, we would like to thank attorney Chris M. Ingram and the staff at the law offices of Chris M. Ingram. They did incredible work preparing the research for this show.
Absolutely. They drew on a really wide variety of news sources, from both sides of the aisle, aiming for that balanced view.
That's right. And while attorney Ingram is a vocal advocate for the rights and protection of immigration applicants, our coverage here is designed to be strictly nonpartisan.
We're focused on presenting the findings from the research.
Exactly. And a quick reminder for you listening, please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our channel. We are also on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Reddit, and Instagram.
Yeah, we're growing really fast on those platforms thanks to our awesome social media team.
Definitely. You can also visit our website at www.breakthroughUSA.com. We'd love to see you there. Okay, let's dive in.
Let's do it. So today we're really unpacking this intersection of human talent, individual drive, and these shifting policy landscapes. It's complex.
It is. And our focus, drawing from the legal research prepared by our researchers, really weaves together, that human tenacity we see, the constant evolution of policy, and critically, the economic impact, especially for STEM professionals.
And for you, the listener, whether you're maybe a CEO or researcher yourself or just someone interested in where the U.S. economy is heading, the system we're analyzing today, well, it's pretty foundational, isn't it?
Absolutely. You can feel the tension in the system right now. So our mission today is to take all this complex legal research from our team and sort of distill it into four main narratives.
Okay. What's the first one?
First, we've got a really inspiring personal story. It perfectly sets the stage for innovation, I think.
Right, then.
Second, we'll dissect the current state of enforcement, what's actually happening on the ground, plus major judicial rulings.
Got it. Enforcement and courts.
Third, we're going to explore some transformative and mandatory bureaucratic changes happening at USCIS. Big stuff.
The process changes. Always important.
And finally, we'll look at the huge economic ripple effects from policy shifts, particularly around trade tariffs and how they connect back to immigration.
So the goal here is really to give you a comprehensive, sort of nuanced view of this system that's constantly trying to balance things, right? Opportunity and innovation versus this increasing political demand for order and, secure processes.
Exactly. It's a balancing act, and right now it feels like it's on a knife's edge. Okay, so let's start with that story.
Yeah.
It's one of just pure, unadulterated persistence. I mean, it really should be required reading for anyone in the STEM world. We're talking about Yuan, the founder of Zoom.
Zoom.
Yeah.
His story is incredible. It's the kind of innovation that genuinely changed how global knowledge workers collaborate. But wow, the path for him, it was just paved with rejection.
It really was. It's like the quintessential immigrant entrepreneur story, but maybe amplified by modern tech, right? Our researchers found he was born in 1970, Shandong, China, a promising young engineer.
But his whole trajectory shifted in 1994. He heard a lecture by Bill Gates talking about the future of the internet.
Just one lecture?
Apparently, that spark just immediately focused him on one goal.
Get to the American tech hub, Silicon Valley.
And the resistance he hit was just extraordinary. The legal study highlights this clearly. Between 1995 and 1997, he applied for a U.S. visa 8 times.
8 times.
8 times he was told no. I mean, that level of bureaucratic obstruction, most people would just give up, wouldn't they?
You'd think so. It's just a testament to his sheer willpower. Yuan later said something like he continued to apply again and again over the course of 2 years and finally received my visa on the 9th try. 9th try.
Yeah. And our team noted something interesting here. Each denial sort of forced him to meticulously re-examine his profile, refine his skills, strengthen his case. It was almost like he treated the visa application itself as an iterative engineering problem.
That's a fascinating way to put it. Failure as data. So he finally makes it in 1997. He's 27. The bureaucratic fight is won, but now the cultural and professional adaptation starts, right? And that must have been steep.
Incredibly steep. Our researchers found he landed with pretty limited English. Imagine that in Silicon Valley. He had to pour massive energy into just memorizing technical jargon, practicing complex communication.
And the culture itself is different.
Hugely different. Silicon Valley runs on this highly outspoken, assertive ethos. That can be a real shock if you come from a more reserved, maybe hierarchical culture. He had to learn fast not just the language, but the whole cultural context of innovation there. How to pitch, how to debate, how to command respect in a super competitive environment.
So he gets his foot in the door at WebEx. And doesn't just get in, he rises quickly, becomes vice president of engineering. That's a huge achievement.
Monumental, especially given the hurdles. And then Cisco buys WebEx for, what, over $3 billion? So he's got stability, success.
But he quits. Why? Why risk everything he just fought so hard for?
Because apparently success without satisfaction just wasn't enough for him. He was leading engineering, yeah, but he was constantly hearing customer complaints. The research suggests he told interviewers that the clunky interfaces, the unreliable connections of the existing systems, they genuinely bothered him.
He felt the tech was failing people.
Exactly. That empathy, that relentless focus on making the customer happy, that was the intellectual seed for Zoom.
So he found Zoom in 2011. He's 41, takes this massive leap. But the team he built, our researchers emphasized this wasn't just him.
No, definitely not. He didn't just hire locally. He hired talent globally, recognized their drive. He started with a core team of about 40 engineers, and importantly, many of them were immigrants themselves.
And the mission was clear from day one.
Crystal clear. Build a tool that puts seamless user experience first. Reduce latency. And, crucially, deliver happiness, that was his word, instead of frustration. That focus on low latency, high reliability connection that became the absolute killer competitive edge later on.
And boy, did that become clear in 2020. The numbers are just staggering.
They really are. Daily users just exploded. From maybe 10 million in late 2019 to over 300 million by mid-2020. Market value soared to like $19 billion.
But the real deep dive here, the thing that matters for this conversation, is the impact on global knowledge sharing, right?
Precisely. A Stanford study pointed this out. Tools like Zoom didn't just enable remote meetings, they enabled unprecedented remote collaboration. That's the key phrase.
Can you give us a concrete example? Like, what does unprecedented collaboration look like for STEM professionals?
Sure. Think about global research groups. Suddenly, scientists working on, say, vaccine research across different continents, different time zones, they could review complex data simultaneously. No need for expensive, time-consuming travel.
Okay, I see.
Or imagine AI model development. Teams spread across the globe could do real-time debugging together. Or astrophysicists sharing massive data sets instantly when timing is absolutely critical. It basically just compressed the globe for high-scale knowledge exchange.
Your story is such a powerful illustration, and it seems like it offers common ground in the, frankly, highly polarized immigration debate we see today. Our team's legal research highlighted three sort of distinct arguments that all seem to celebrate his success, but from different angles.
Yeah, it's interesting how his story resonates across the spectrum. First, you've got the straightforward economic view. William Kerr at Harvard articulates this well. He basically says, immigrant entrepreneurs are a vital source of jobs, essential for a dynamic economy, especially in high tech. They bring new energy, new firms.
Okay, the economic engine argument.
Then there's a conservative perspective, kind of exemplified by George Will. He framed immigration itself as inherently the entrepreneurial act of taking the risk of uprooting oneself and plunging into uncertainty.
That description fits Yuan's 9 visa attempts perfectly. It speaks to merit, grit, risk-taking.
Exactly. And finally, there's the progressive view. You see this in comments like those from Massachusetts Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll. It focuses more on the human aspiration that immigrant friends and neighbors are just eager to work hard, start businesses, achieve self-sufficiency, and in doing so, they enrich the whole community.
So what attorney Chris Ingram's team is suggesting, essentially, is that Yuan's 9 rejections and then his eventual breakthrough. It's almost like a powerful metaphor for scientific discovery itself, right?
Yeah, that constant iteration, learning from failure, pushing forward until the breakthrough happens. His story really does provide this rare, kind of unifying example for both merit-based and more inclusive immigration advocates. It shows the potential payoff of persistence, both for the individual and the country. Okay, so now we need a transition. We go from that really inspiring story of innovation to the complex and frankly challenging reality of the current policy environment and the enforcement climate. It has visibly sharpened.
Sharpened. How sharp are we talking? The Department of Homeland Security numbers. They're significant, aren't they?
Very sharp. Our analysis indicates over 2 million individuals have been removed or have self-deported just since the beginning of this year. That's a massive number.
Wow.
And sustaining that kind of aggressive posture, it requires considerable resources. We're seeing significant new infrastructure being built specifically aimed at increasing detention capacity and streamlining the whole removal process.
There are just too many visas out there, and I don't know which one is right for us. We need to get the right advice.
Communication is everything, and I just need someone who will listen and guide me to the right visa type, and not make promises that they can't deliver.
There are so many documents. I need someone to walk me through each one. I can't afford to make any mistakes.
If I can just find a lawyer who understands my potential, I know America will be an excellent opportunity for me and my family.
Welcome to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, and we are your immigration lawyers, and we will be with you every step of the way in your immigration journey.
At the law office of Chris M. Ingram, you get a free consultation so we can understand your needs.
We don't make promises we can't keep. Our success rate speaks for itself.
Join us and access your step-by-step video guides that answer every visa question.
Their platform is amazing. There are videos that instruct you on everything you have to do. It meant we were in control and we could do it in our own time.
They couldn't have been more helpful. They answered every question that I had, and it was easy to see they were the lawyers for me.
I couldn't believe it with my busy schedule. They always had time to talk to me and put me at ease. That's what I like about them.
So go on our website and get your free consultation now, and your new life is about to begin.
Ask me.
We did it! We did it! We did it!
Oh my God, I got my visa! Yes, I did it!
Our researchers even mentioned some pretty striking names for these new facilities. Things like Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, Speedway Slammer in Indiana. I mean, those sound almost sensational. What do they actually signify in policy terms?
Well, the names themselves might be kind of colloquial, maybe even grab headlines, but they symbolize a very serious political commitment to boosting capacity and deterrence. They represent massive infrastructure investment needed to manage removals on this scale.
And is that deterrence working from a policy perspective?
It seems to be having that effect. A UN study actually attributes a staggering 97% drop in northward migration from Central America directly to this heightened fear of detention and the perceived sort of finality of current border policies.
97%, that's huge. And this is where you really see the political polarization crank up, right?
Yeah.
How do different sides interpret these numbers?
Exactly. On the conservative side, the argument is pretty straightforward. This enforcement proves effective governance. Our research points to Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin, who stated that the removal show policies are working and making American communities safe. The focus is on rule of law, border security.
Okay. But the progressive counterargument is that the costs, not just human costs, but economic ones, are just too high.
Precisely. Scholars like Raul Hinojosa Ojeda at UCLA, they contend these mass deportations literally tear communities apart. They severely disrupt local economies by removing labor, and importantly, that includes highly skilled professionals from essential sectors like healthcare, like technology. The argument is the focus is solely on enforcement, ignoring the massive economic contributions being lost.
And this tension gets even more complicated when you look at major judicial decisions that are directly hitting high-skilled foreign nationals. Let's unpack the Supreme Court's termination of temporary protected status TPS for that large group of Venezuelans, over 300,000 people.
Yeah, that decision sent real shockwaves through the STEM community. TPS, as you know, lets people from countries facing conflict or disaster live and work legally here for a time.
Right.
So terminating it for this big group, which included thousands of highly skilled Venezuelan engineers, chemists, researchers, it just immediately injected profound uncertainty into their lives. These weren't just any workers. Many were actively contributing to critical U.S. sectors, AI, advanced manufacturing, biotech.
So we're talking about people who are working legally, paying taxes, driving innovation, and suddenly their status is completely up in the air. What was the political justification given for that kind of painful trade-off?
Well, conservative voices generally framed it as a win for common sense. They emphasized the statutory nature of TPS. The T stands for temporary, right? So the argument was it can't become a de facto path to permanent residency. The courts were seen as just upholding the original legislative intent.
And the other side.
Progressive advocates strongly criticized the destabilization. They argued it fractures families, damages communities that had integrated these professionals, and really relied on their skills. It was seen as counterproductive and inhumane.
Amidst all this division, though, our team found a really fascinating instance of, well, bipartisan alignment. Can you tell us about that state action regarding food stamp recipients' data?
Yeah, this was quite striking. It was a rare moment where privacy concerns seemed to trump partisan policy differences. Several states, really spanning the political spectrum, blocked federal requests for personal data on food stamp recipients.
Why?
They cited serious privacy concerns. There were expressed fears that this data could be misused, specifically in immigration enforcement efforts. The worry was it could create a chilling effect, stopping citizens and legal residents from accessing social services they're entitled to. It really highlighted this broad consensus on protecting personal data from potentially overreaching federal policy.
Interesting. Okay, let's shift gears again slightly and move to H-1B policy. This is really the lifeblood for so much high-skilled immigration. There was a recent presidential proclamation introducing substantial new fees on certain H-1B petitions. Can we go beyond just saying new fees? What are the mechanics here, and what's the thinking behind it?
Right, this policy change isn't trivial. It introduces significant financial hurdles, and they seem designed to act as a kind of filtering mechanism. Specifically, the fees target companies that rely heavily on the H-1B program, especially those maybe with high concentrations of H-1B workers relative to their U.S. workforce.
And the rationale from the administration?
The conservative rationale, articulated by folks like Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, seems twofold. One, create a stronger financial nudge for companies to hire American workers first. And two, ensure that if a foreign worker is hired via H-1B, they are absolutely the top people available globally. It's about prioritizing truly elite talent over perhaps more general skilled labor.
But these aren't just small administrative fees. They're large enough to require urgent travel advisories, serious financial planning by companies. So what's the progressive concern about structuring it this way?
Well, Heidi Shearholtz from the Economic Policy Institute raises a crucial point. These kinds of restrictions create significant economic friction. By jacking up the cost and complexity of hiring foreign talent, the U.S. risks essentially driving innovation offshore. Think about it. If a company faces tight deadlines for a critical R&D project, and the U.S. visa process becomes significantly more expensive, slower, or just less predictable, they might logically choose to open labs or research centers in countries with faster, cheaper, more stable visa pathways. That directly weakens U.S. competitiveness in really high-growth fields. Think quantum computing, advanced semiconductor design.
Okay, looking ahead, our researchers flagged a critical Supreme Court case coming up in December, Urias Orellana v. Bondi. Why should we be paying attention to this one?
This case gets into some pretty technical legal ground, but it's important. It centers on how much deference courts should give to decisions made by the Board of Immigration Appeals, specifically regarding claims of persecution, which is the core of many asylum cases.
And the potential impact.
The outcome could significantly refine the standard for who qualifies for protection in the U.S. Academic analysis, like work from David Beer at the Cato Institute, suggests that if the standard of review is narrowed, making it harder to challenge BIA decisions, then future immigration reforms will have an even tougher time balancing strict security needs with core humanitarian obligations. And that balance is crucial if we want to retain global talent, including highly educated people seeking stable environments to work and live.
It seems like through all these different threads, the intense enforcement, the impactful court rulings, the new fees, the underlying message coming through from the legal team's analysis keeps emphasizing the human element.
Yeah, absolutely. The need to handle policies, even strict ones, with dignity and compassion to ensure that the individuals navigating this incredibly complex system are treated as, well, full human beings, not just case numbers or data points in a political debate.
Okay, now let's pivot to something maybe less overtly political, but profoundly impactful on everyone interacting with the system. A major, mandatory bureaucratic shift at USCIS, the digital payment revolution.
Yeah, this one is huge, and it's not optional. It's being driven by a federal executive order, EO 14247, which basically mandates the modernization of all federal payments.
So let's get the key details out. Effective date.
Right.
And what's the core change?
The hard deadline is October 28, 2025. After that date, USCIS will strictly, absolutely no longer accept paper checks or money orders for any benefit requests.
No more checks or money orders. That affects how many people?
It impacts over 10 million annual applicants. Everyone.
Wow. Okay, so if you can't use a check, how do you pay? What are the required digital methods?
Applicants have to transition entirely to digital. That means either using Form G1650 for ACH bank transfers, basically a direct debit from a U.S. bank account, or using Form G1450 for credit or debit card payments, and that could include prepaid cards too.
And the main goal here from USCIS's perspective, efficiency.
Primarily, yes. Curbing fraud associated with paper payments, reducing manual processing errors, bounce checks, illegible writing, and streamlining their internal costs.
This sounds like it could be a net positive, especially for high-volume filings like we see in the STEM sector, right?
Mm-hmm.
Faster processing for H-1Bs is always a good thing.
Absolutely. That's the promise. USCIS spokesperson Matthew J. Tregesser pointed out that historically, something like over 90% of their payments were paper-based. That created enormous processing friction.
90%.
Yeah. So by eliminating that paper trail, the agency projects a 31% reduction just in payment-related inquiries alone. That frees up significant resources.
Resources they can use to tackle backlogs.
That's the idea. Tackle those massive case backlogs, which include, as our team noted, more than 60,000 pending H-1B cases. For a company desperately trying to get talent on board for a time-sensitive AI project, say, faster adjudication is absolutely paramount.
Okay, that's the upside, the theory. But let's dig into the practical hurdles. The research points to some pretty serious equity concerns and difficulties, especially for new arrivals.
This is the critical friction point, you're right. The requirement for a U.S. bank account for the ACH option. That poses immediate difficulties for a lot of people. Think about international students on F1 visas or other recent arrivals.
Why is it so hard for them to get a U.S. bank account?
Well, to open a typical U.S. bank account, you often need things like verifiable proof of U.S. residency, a social security number, or maybe a taxpayer identification number, ITAN. Many new arrivals simply don't have those documents yet, so they might be forced onto other routes, like using credit cards or maybe prepaid debit cards, which often carry higher fees and can be more prone to transactional failures.
So what happens if that digital transaction does fail? For insufficient funds, maybe an expired card. That sounds terrifying if you've just spent thousands on lawyers and prep.
The risk of outright rejection is stark.
Feeling lost in a maze of visa types and paperwork? Don't know where to turn? We've got your back. With clear answers and real help, we'll guide you every step of the way. Let's navigate it together. Your journey starts today.
Hello, you must be Clara. Welcome to the law office of Chris M. Ingram.
Finally, I found a law firm that will help me achieve my American dream.
At this law firm, you are important to us. That's why we will be with you every step of the way. So join us at the office of Chris M. Ingram.
USCIS has been very clear. If the payment transaction is denied for any reason, insufficient funds, wrong info, expired card, the entire application may be rejected. Not just held up, but rejected.
Wow. So for time-sensitive applications, like an H-1B subject to the cap, that could mean losing your chance entirely for the year, or even losing legal status.
Potentially, yes. And the research really emphasizes the burden this puts back on attorneys. They now have to diligently confirm, maybe even daily near the filing deadline, that their client has sufficient, instantly accessible funds available for that specific transaction. That adds a whole new layer of stress and financial pressure, especially for maybe early career STEM professionals who might not have large balances readily available.
And what about the big filers? Universities, large tech companies submitting applications for whole teams of researchers or engineers at once. The bulk submission issue.
Yeah, that's another significant administrative hurdle our team flagged. Previously, a major tech firm filing, say, 50 H-1B petitions might have just cut one or two large consolidated checks to cover all the fees. Simple enough.
But now,
under this new system, each individual form requires its own separate digital payment authorization, using either that Form G1650 for ACH or G1450 for cards.
So for those 50 engineers.
That means the company's legal and finance teams have to manage 50 individual digital transactions, maybe more if there are other related forms. Each one carries its own risk of failure. It complicates the filing process exponentially compared to the old batch filing methods with a single check.
How are the different political viewpoints reacting to this huge shift towards digitization? It seems like something everyone would want, but maybe for different reasons.
Kind of. The conservative viewpoint, often championed by think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, tends to view this modernization primarily as a necessary step to strengthen program integrity. Digital systems are seen as crucial for reducing opportunities for waste, fraud, and abuse that can be associated with older, paper-based processes.
Okay, integrity and security. What about the progressive side?
Well, progressive legal scholars and organizations, like those cited by Ogletree Deakins, for instance, are more concerned about the potential for exclusion. They caution that while efficiency is a laudable goal, the policy might inadvertently create significant barriers for lower-income applicants, or those who are unbanked or underbanked, especially recent arrivals.
So, potentially excluding talent.
That's the worry. Policy researcher Laura Alexander strongly argues that any digital transition like this must prioritize equitable access. We need to ensure we don't accidentally shut the door on the very global talent pool that's so critical to our STEM future just because they don't yet have a U.S. bank account.
Before we move off USCIS, we absolutely have to mention two other crucial updates our team highlighted. First, the really important adjustment to the employment authorization document, the EAD validity period.
Yes, this is a major positive development, especially for continuity in the STEM sector. USCIS permanently increased the automatic EAD validity extension period from the old 180 days up to 540 days for certain eligible renewal categories.
Okay, explain why 540 days instead of 180 is such a massive relief, as our researchers put it, for someone like, say, a quantum computing specialist waiting on their H-1B or green card.
It's all about protecting people from falling out of status due to bureaucratic delays. Historically, if someone's EAD renewal application was stuck in processing beyond that 180-day automatic extension, which happened depressingly often due to backlogs, that highly skilled professional would simply lose their authorization to work,
forcing them to stop critical research.
Exactly. Imagine telling a lead scientist on a multi-year quantum computing project, "Sorry, USCIS is delayed, you have to stop working immediately." It could derail entire projects. A 540-day buffer, that's about 18 months, it effectively covers almost all plausible administrative delays in the current processing landscape for H-1B extensions or green card adjustments. It guarantees that continuity of employment. For these highly specialized fields, that security is invaluable.
That makes sense. Huge relief. However, there's also a new financial burden noted in the research. A $575 parole fee linked to H.R. 1. Who does this new fee impact?
This specifically burdens people seeking parole. Parole is a mechanism that allows someone to enter or stay in the U.S. temporarily, often for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. It's sometimes used for researchers coming for very specific, short-term, critical projects that maybe don't fit neatly into standard visa categories.
Though this makes that harder.
It adds an immediate $575 financial layer to the re-parole application process. While it might generate some revenue for the government, it creates new friction. It could potentially limit the mobility and availability of these temporary STEM researchers, the very people the U.S. sometimes relies on for quick, innovative bursts on critical projects. It's another cost factor for temporary high-skill labor.
Okay, let's broaden the lens now to the macroeconomic forces at play.
Sure.
Our team framed this as an economic trilemma. We're talking about the really complex interplay between trade policy, specifically tariffs, immigration restrictions, and overall economic growth.
Right. It's impossible to look at immigration policy in a vacuum, especially now. Trade policy, particularly the use of tariffs, is deeply intertwined.
Let's start by just quantifying the scope here. How widespread are these tariffs we're talking about?
It's pretty massive. The research indicates tariffs currently cover something like 69% of all U.S. imports.
69%, wow.
Yeah. Targeting goods like steel, aluminum, and just a vast array of Chinese manufactured products. The sheer volume of trade affected tells you this isn't some niche policy tweak. It's a fundamental shift impacting global supply chains.
And our sources, especially the Peterson Institute for International Economics, they provided some truly staggering projections for the long-term economic cost. Let's dig into that figure they mentioned, a potential $22,000 lifetime loss for middle-income households. How does that calculation even work?
Okay, so that figure comes from complex economic models called computable general equilibrium, or CGE models. Economists use these to simulate how big policy changes ripple through the entire economy. The $22,000 projected loss, spread over a lifetime for a typical middle-income earner, comes mainly from two things.
What are they?
One, just reduced disposable income. Research, like from the National Bureau of Economic Research on the 2018-2019 tariffs, found that the costs were fully passed through to U.S. consumers and importers. So prices go up for imported goods and also for domestic products that use those tax materials. And two, suppressed wages. The idea is that tariffs lead to less efficient global trade, which can cause a slight economic contraction, dampening wage growth over the long run.
And the research highlighted a really striking comparison, didn't it? That these tariff losses are projected to be twice as large as the economic hit from a corporate tax increase that would raise the same amount of revenue. Why such a big difference?
It's because tariffs are seen by most economists as a particularly regressive and distortionary way to raise revenue. Corporate tax increases, while debated, can be managed or partially offset by companies in various ways. But tariffs, they directly increase the cost of inputs for businesses and the price of goods for consumers right across the board. They disrupt the efficiencies that have built up in global supply chains over decades. When U.S. importers absorbed the whole cost of those earlier tariffs, it essentially acted like a widespread, kind of hidden tax on consumers, hitting households already dealing with inflation pretty hard.
Let's try to ground this in specific industry pain points. How does this combination of policies, tariffs on goods, plus tightening labor availability through immigration enforcement, how does that affect a foundational sector like agriculture?
Yeah, agriculture gets hit from both sides. It's a tough spot. First, you have retaliatory tariffs imposed by other countries on U.S. farm exports. Our team found that slashed about $27 billion in U.S. agricultural exports, hitting things like soybeans and pork really hard.
Okay, so export markets shrink.
Right. But then second, you have the domestic side. As we saw with the example in Georgia mentioned in the research, concurrent immigration enforcement actions in farming areas can create severe labor shortages, literally overnight sometimes.
And that has knock-on effects.
Absolutely. The legal study noted that this labor disruption in Georgia was so significant it actually impacted other industrial projects nearby, including delaying a planned Hyundai plant expansion. Why? Because the surrounding community lacked stable labor and, frankly, the economic confidence needed for such a big investment.
So it's like a paradox. Companies might be encouraged by protectionist policies to invest domestically, but then they struggle to find the workers needed to staff the plants, or the materials become prohibitively expensive because of the very same tariffs.
Precisely. The construction industry is another perfect example highlighted by our researchers. Tariffs on essential materials like lumber, steel, copper. They led to an estimated $3.4 billion in downstream losses because the price of just basic building materials shot through the roof.
In other sectors.
Hospitality, definitely. It relies heavily on immigrant labor, often for jobs native-born workers are less willing to do. So that sector gets squeezed by both rising labor costs due to shortages and rising commodity prices passed down through the supply chain. Margins get tight, investment slows. And Florida, as the research noted, faces a unique, specific threat from potential new Canadian tariffs, which could seriously jeopardize its tourism and export-driven economy, with potential losses running into the billions.
They said my EB1 needed more categories. I can't even dock. What am I gonna do?
I need to find the right lawyer that can navigate me through this crisis. I need my EB1 so my new life can begin. These lawyers are amazing. They are walking me through every questions, making sure I don't miss a thing.
Thanks to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, I'm cleared to land. But my career is gonna take off.
Houston. He got his visa.
Need help with your visa? Book your free consultation now at www.breakthroughusa.com and let us take care of you.
Okay, this brings us right back to the core theme. The threat to R&D, the tech sector, innovation. How do trade protectionism and immigration restrictions combine to potentially push innovation out of the U.S.?
It creates this sort of compound discouraging effect. Julia Gillette over at the Migration Policy Institute warned about this. When you combine H-1B restrictions, add excessive new fees, and just the general increased difficulty and unpredictability of moving top talent into the U.S., well, companies logically start to evaluate relocating their research and development operations abroad.
It just becomes easier elsewhere.
Potentially, yes. Firms might realize they can access the same elite global talent pool, often faster, cheaper, and with more regulatory stability, in other countries like Canada or parts of Europe or Asia. When a multinational is deciding where to invest billions in, say, a cutting-edge AI lab, they start wondering if this is really the environment to invest in the U.S., given all the policy uncertainty and rising costs.
This really crystallizes that economic trilemma concept, the one articulated by progressive economist Giovanni Perry, that our team looked at. Can you lay out that principle again? What are the three things you supposedly can't have all at once?
Right. Perry's argument, based on economic modeling, is that you generally cannot achieve three policy goals simultaneously. You can't significantly boost domestic manufacturing, substantially shrink immigrant employment, and maintain broad affordability for consumers and businesses. You basically have to pick 2 out of 3.
How does that trade-off work?
Well, if you prioritize boosting domestic manufacturing, maybe through tariffs, and restricting immigration, cutting labor supply, you inevitably increase labor costs. That can slow production and ultimately drives up consumer prices. Affordability suffers. Conversely, if you want affordability and robust economic growth, history suggests you generally need a flexible, available labor supply, which immigrants, particularly in certain sectors, overwhelmingly provide. Our researchers noted immigrants currently fill around 400,000 critical manufacturing jobs, often sustaining industries that face acute labor shortages among the native-born population.
So it really seems like the stated political goals, boosting domestic industry via protectionism and restricting immigration, might be fundamentally working against the economic realities required to maintain U.S. leadership in innovation.
That's the core tension highlighted by the economic analysis in our research. Immigrant entrepreneurs like Yuan and countless skilled workers drive breakthroughs. They're coding critical apps, developing life-saving drugs. MIT's Darren Esamoglu emphasizes this point strongly. Immigrant contributions in STEM fields are absolutely critical to sustaining America's competitive edge in global discovery. So if policy choices make the country a less attractive or accessible place for global talent, you directly risk eroding that leadership position.
And throughout this section, our team, including attorney Chris Ingram, consistently stresses that these restrictive policies, whether trade or immigration, ultimately harm not just the targeted groups, but also American businesses who rely on predictable supply chains and access to talent, and American families who bear the cost of inflation and reduced economic dynamism. The call remains for finding more humane, pragmatic solutions that recognize both the dignity and the crucial economic contribution of every worker navigating this complex system. #tag conclusion and final takeaways. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. A really comprehensive deep dive, moving from Yuan's incredible personal story of resilience
through the really charged political debates over security versus compassion in enforcement and judicial rulings,
to that huge practical bureaucratic shift to digital payments at USCIS coming next year.
And finally, landing on this complex economic trilemma created by tariffs and immigration restrictions.
So let's try to synthesize the key takeaways from these 4 major themes. Yuan's story, what does it really show us?
It shows the sheer power of individual persistence, right? And maybe why, as a country, we should value risk takers who are willing to overcome immense obstacles to build something new here.
And the policy debates.
They just starkly illustrate this ongoing need for balance. We have to find a way somehow to enforce immigration laws effectively without simultaneously alienating or excluding the highly skilled professionals our economy increasingly relies on. It's a tough needle to thread.
And then the USCIS digital mandate effective October 2025. The potential upside is clear.
Definitely. Efficiency gains could be critical for speeding up those painful H-1B and other backlogs. But as we discussed, it needs really careful implementation to avoid creating new unintended barriers, especially for international talent who might not have easy access to U.S. banking right away.
Though that 540-day EAD extension is a huge positive step, offering a vital safeguard against administrative friction for STEM workers already in the pipeline.
Absolutely. That provides much-needed stability. And finally, the economics. The data presented in the research seems pretty undeniable.
How so?
Restrictive trade policies, particularly broad tariffs, when combined with increasing barriers to skilled immigration, appear to pose a real threat to long-run GDP growth. Policies that simultaneously raise costs for businesses and remove skilled labor risk, pushing innovation abroad. That directly counteracts the stated goal of making the U.S. more globally competitive.
So the central tension we keep coming back to is this fundamental struggle, isn't it? Reconciling conservative demands for stricter order, border security, and process efficiency.
With progressive calls for compassion, inclusivity, and recognizing the economic contributions of immigrants.
And the risk is that policies designed primarily to manage the present challenges might inadvertently exclude the next generation of innovators, the next Eric Yuans.
Exactly. And our legal team's research makes a pretty powerful closing argument that STEM professionals themselves, the scientists, engineers, tech leaders, are actually uniquely positioned to advocate for more balanced, pragmatic policies.
Why them specifically?
Because they understand firsthand the practical urgency of needing reliable, reasonably quick access to global talent to keep projects moving, to stay ahead, to sustain America's leadership in critical fields like AI, biotech, clean energy, you name it. Their voice carries weight based on direct experience.
Okay, so as we wrap up, let's leave you, our listener, with its final provocative thought to mull over. We've seen compelling evidence today that the U.S. desperately needs immigrant talent, especially in STEM, to maintain its innovation leadership. Yet current policy shifts seem to be making that talent pipeline narrower and harder to navigate. At the same time, we see potentially massive economic downsides from restrictive trade policies.
So the question becomes, given the proven necessity of global talent for the future of technological discovery, how will the U.S. reconcile the strong political priority often placed on economic protectionism with the equally strong economic necessity of maintaining relatively open pathways for highly skilled individuals? Can those two things coexist long term?
Something to think about. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really hope you gained a lot from this discussion. Please, if you can, leave us a comment. We do read them.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And you can also support our channel just by sharing it with your friends and family. It really helps us build this community together.
Also, don't forget to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram. As we mentioned, we're growing rapidly there. Big thanks again to our social media team.
They do amazing work.
We would also like to thank attorney Chris M. Ingram and his dedicated team once again for all the hard work researching and preparing this complex material for our presentation today.
Their insights are invaluable. And remember, if you, or perhaps a friend or a family member, would like a free, confidential consultation regarding U.S. immigration matters, you can easily schedule an appointment through our website.
That website again is www.breakthroughUSA.com. We'd love to hear from you and see if we can help you, if we can.
Definitely reach out.
See you next time on Let's Talk U.S. Immigration. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.